Namo tassa bhagavato arahato samma sambuddhassa. Namo tassa bhagavato arahato samma sambuddhassa. Namo tassa bhagavato arahato samma sambuddhassa. Buddhang Dhammang Sanghang Namasami. I love listening to some beautiful Dhamma reflections from great wisdom masters from the past. When you hear the truth being said, I find it very, very inspiring. But then there's reality, isn't there? And there's emotions and our own conditioning coming up. So sometimes I think it's good to talk about that. I was talking with my aunt this afternoon, and she said, I think you should talk about stress. She said, because she's 82 years old, she's a very sweet lady, and she said, the drivers are just crazy out there. I don't know that they're supposed to be, it's the holiday season, but they're all driving very, very fast. They must be stressed out. And it's true. I think people, whether it's the holiday season or not, there's stress and there's suffering that comes up for whatever reason. And I was reflecting how the Buddha teaches. He also was very aware that there are things that are going to arise in the mind that are going to distract us and take us away from the peace and the silence of the present moment. So I thought I would break it down based on the Buddha's 5 groupings talked about in the suttas, and I'll give my own thoughts on these qualities of mind that really can get in the way of our practice, the peace, the present moment, peace and awareness that really is within all of us and available for all of us. It's not like there's something we have to get. It really is about getting rid of, letting go. And we have to be careful even when we say getting rid of, because there can be an aversion with that, but it really is just not getting lost in it, not trusting it, not following after it. The first and one of the most challenging mind states the Buddha mentions is sense desire, and how sense desire can really take us out of present moment awareness, can't it? We're really connected with this physical body and identified with this physical body. This physical body has eyes, ears, nose, the sensation of touch on the skin and taste in the mouth. And we just love getting lost in these senses. And sights and sounds and smells and what's good, what's tasty, what's beautiful, and where can I go on vacation next to see some beautiful something or hear something or smell something or eat something. We love to, that's, when we think about the holidays, I think food comes up a lot because that is part of the culture. I'm not saying it's bad because I think it is very beautiful when we get together, especially for spiritual occasions. But see what happens when we get lost in sense desire or greed for things. And see the suffering with that when we get lost in it. See the suffering if we want an experience and we don't get it. I think about Christmas as a kid, and I maybe had not the healthiest relationship with Christmas because it felt like it was, what was I going to get? What kind of gift was I going to get? I feel sad that that's what's coming up in my memory, but that's just what it is. It was kind of like my parents were very kind and generous, said, what do you want for Christmas? I remember we used to circle things in the consumer distributing catalog. You'd circle the toy or something, and it's a really missed opportunity to see the true. And I did grow up as a Christian. To see the true spirit of Christianity really is, it's about giving and loving kindness and sharing blessings. And I'm sure that was in there, but the habit of the mind is really about getting and fulfilling an experience. And maybe that's just me, but maybe that's other people too. We have to look in our own hearts and see how powerful sense desire is, and how distracting it is, and how when we cling to it, how suffering arises with that. That one I think is sometimes harder for people to see the suffering with versus aversion and hatred and ill will, where I think that leaves such a unpleasant taste in the mouth or in the mind. It's easy to see the suffering, but I think it's harder to see the suffering of sense desires and the clinging and wanting of sense desires. So what I encourage you to do is just investigate this for yourself. See, even just when we're sitting and meditating, is there a resistance? Do I want to be doing something else, watching a movie or being distracted by something, playing a game, whatever it is, the habit of the mind. And then what if that opportunity is no longer there? And we have to sit with this. Then we really get this opportunity to see the suffering in it. It's like during COVID, when people couldn't get out and do the things they wanted to do, eat the food. Sometimes the stores didn't have as much food or the favorite food or the food that you wanted. And it was such a good opportunity for people to look at their suffering. It was a really good opportunity. Those kind of opportunities, these stresses in the world can really help bring us to the Dhamma, to look for some freedom from the suffering that really is the nature of the world, of this world with its pleasant and unpleasant experiences, just as part of how life is. Not like you're wishing it on anyone, but it is just how life is. It has its ups and downs. We see that in the world. Sometimes the world is going to have more peace in it. Sometimes it will have more disharmony. Sometimes maybe people have more wealth, more power. Times where people have less. And we just see this flow. And that's just nature. And it will keep changing. We can say, well, maybe it's a blip right now, a blip of negative. But the positives are blips. The negatives are blips. This is samsara. This is just the circle, the way samsara is. And when we can learn to abide with it and allow the flow without so much resistance, doesn't mean that we're not trying to be good people and loving and kind people, but really accepting we're doing that with wisdom in our heart. And the wisdom is just allowing that flow. And it's the same with sense desires, just realizing we can't always get what we want. And our body is not going to always do what we want. Sometimes pain is going to arise, and we don't want pain to arise. And can we just allow the flow of that without so much resistance and see if we can find some peace in that? So number 2 is ill will and aversion. The Buddha talks about sense desire, the desire to become, and then there's the desire to get rid of. And that's like the aversion, that's the ill will. The things that we don't like in the world, we don't want to experience. We don't want to lose the things we love, and we don't want to experience the things that we don't like. That's just the conditioning. And when we get lost in that, how can we always set up the world to always have the experiences that we want, the pleasant experiences, the good experience? Who can do that? Can anyone do that? I don't know of anyone who can do this. Who can control the body? This is what people are doing nowadays. They're trying to have bodies that never get old, never get sick, never die. Well, I haven't seen that happen yet. This is an aversion to the natural process of the body, and there's not a lot of wisdom there. There's a lot of inherent suffering in that. And striving with suffering. It's not to say that we're not trying to make the world a better place and help people who are sick, because I think that's a very beautiful thing to do. But it's the same thing. Can we do that with a heart of ease and a heart of letting go, and find that balance of being a good person and a kind and generous person in the world and a loving person without clinging to any results. Very tricky, but well worth investigating and seeing how that can come about more naturally. I think sometimes people think, well, if I'm not clinging to doing something, then the world won't be a better place. But I don't know if people know this expression, the road to hell is paved with good intentions. And that's the clinging. The intention is good, but when the clinging's there, it can really turn ugly. So it's not to say don't have the good intention, but just be careful of the clinging. And be careful of getting lost in whatever the results are going to be. So aversion comes up a lot with the body. I'm getting older, and lots of the people I know are getting older, and more body dukkha seems to happen when you're older, but not necessarily. And there's a lot of aversion to seeing the world that's not our ideal of how it should be. And sometimes that can really bother us. But I look at the time of the Buddha. What was their good old days where there weren't people killing people and countries trying to take over other countries and greed, hatred, and delusion as such a strong focus in samsara. What good old days were those? It's nice to think things were better in another period, but there's always been these qualities. These are what keep the world of samsara going. But they're always balanced out with beautiful qualities of non-greed, non-hatred, non-delusion. And we just have to keep redirecting ourselves to this non-greed, non-hatred, non-delusion in the world. But be careful to not get too lost in thinking that things were better at a different time or for a different generation, because it's very cyclical for all of us and for all of our experiences. So can we find some peace with the unpleasant experiences in the world in our heart? Can we find some peace with what we can't change? Accept that the world is not my ideal of how the world should be. Because my idea of how the world should be is a little bit different or a lot different than everyone else's ideal of how the world should be. So we would never all find that happiness, because our ideals of how the world should be are just based on our conditioning, aren't they? You know, I grew up as a Canadian. I think Canada should be a country because that's what I was told my whole life. And so that's in my conditioning. That's a habit in this mind. But I can be aware of that, and I can understand that that's my conditioning. And then whatever happens in the world is going to happen in the world. So I have to accept that. If I don't accept it, I'm going to suffer. If there's resistance to it, there's going to be suffering. That's such a touchy example, I think, right now. There's so many smaller things too, like little irritations that we have. Family dinners over the holidays. How many times do our family members irritate us because of habits? Sometimes we can anticipate this happening, and that anticipation sets up a sense of anxiety in us. But rather, can we come in with an open heart in the present moment and just be okay with people not being perfect and not being exactly how we want them to be? And see the suffering of our irritation with other people. This is what I remind myself. And when I can see the suffering of that, it's much easier to let it go. And just let people be people. Because none of us are perfect. We don't live in a perfect world. So that's the aversion. The third quality of mind the Buddha talks about is sloth and torpor. Well, hopefully this talk isn't making people sleepy and inattentive. Sloth and torpor is an interesting one, because sometimes I think of it as laziness. And when I think of myself as being lazy in the mind, in the Buddhist sense, I think of it as Not so much that I'm lazy in what I'm doing in the world, but lazy in my mindfulness. I'm lazy in being aware of my mind states when I'm doing what I'm doing, and not keeping my practice as continuous as I would like to be. So it might not be the traditional way of thinking of sloth and torpor, but of wanting to indulge in distraction, knowing clear well that I am indulging in something, or indulging in work, or whatever it is, and not being mindful. That to me is a kind of laziness in practice. And when I see that I'm doing that, I need to bring in encouragement to let that go and not follow after that. And so sometimes that might mean talking to a Kalyanamitta about that and getting some encouragement from somebody, or bringing up a reflection of the Buddha, or seeing the suffering in it, seeing the suffering of the restlessness. But the two go together, that laziness and the restlessness, boredom and restlessness. So it leads right into the next one, which is restlessness and worry. The qualities of restlessness and worry that come into the mind. And these are big ones. And one of the things to remind ourselves is freedom from suffering is right here in the present moment. And it's not getting lost in some unknown future, because that's what the future is. It's just an imagination in our head. And a lot of times worry is about an unknown future. It's about something that we think might happen down the road, of which we really have no idea what's going to happen. We don't know what the future's going to bring. So trying to keep bringing ourselves back to the present moment and reminding ourselves that the future is unknown, and worrying doesn't help. Worrying about it doesn't help. It doesn't make anything more clear, and we're not in control. We might think we're in control, but we're not in control of what's going to happen. Worry and anxiety makes everything feel worse, doesn't it? It makes pain feel worse, it makes fear feel worse, it makes ill will feel worse. For some reason we think it's useful, but we have to remind ourselves it isn't useful. In fact, it causes a lot of suffering, and it causes a lot of suffering in the body. All these habits of the mind, we lay down in the body, don't we? And that's a good reminder for me, because I know what happens to me. Worry goes to my stomach. So I remind myself, well, if I don't want to have an upset stomach, better not to be worried. And even something like that can be helpful. Or Kalyanamitta, talking with our spiritual friends, they say a sadness or a worry that's shared is halved, and a joy that's shared is doubled. And it's true, isn't it? When you've got a good friend that you can share something with, you could feel pretty upset at the beginning of a conversation, and with 3 minutes you could be laughing and totally have forgotten what you were worried about, can't you? Someone can just snap you right out of it when you have good friends that can help and be a support and be an encouragement for you. So sometimes it's very hard for us to do it on our own, so it is really helpful to have people, supports around us, to help keep the mind light in the present moment, flowing with nature. So the last of these 5 qualities is doubt. And doubt is a big one. And I always think of doubt like too much thinking. So if I'm giving a guided meditation or I'm listening to something started, you're like, that doesn't make any sense to me. Why is she bringing that up? This is doubt, right? This is doubt. And doubt is taking us away from the present moment. This is a lot of thinking. And it's coming up because of our conditioning. We have to just remember the reason that we start pondering about things, thinking about things, or proliferating about things is because of conditioning. It's a habit of the mind. And that's something I encourage you, if you can see that and just say, this is not helpful. Right now, empty out. Just going to empty out. Doesn't matter what she's saying. Can I just empty out and find that stillness, that peace? Can I find the spaces between the words and the doubt? Because doubts, if they're words in the mind, they started from emptiness and they'll end in emptiness. And instead of paying attention to this flurry of confusion and misunderstanding, can I just abide in that emptiness when that ends or that starts, or between each moment of it? Slow it down. Slow the doubt down. Space it out. Find the spaces between each word. Like, I am confused. I is just a word. Am, just a word. Confused, just a word. They're all just arising and ceasing in emptiness, in peace. When we're doing vipassana practice, we have to be careful. We have to make sure there's a lot of wisdom. If the heart is feeling heavy, there's something missing. There's some suffering there. Emptiness needs compassion and love in it. There's got to be love, there's got to be joy, and that's why I see that for some, there's this emptying out, and it's like a toxic, stale, empty. That's not waking up. Pure awareness, it's got love, it's got light, it's got joy in it as its true presence. If that's not there, remind ourselves that that's our true presence. Love, light, joy, peace. That's our true presence. And we have to see that, and then we can see that in other people. And then when we're looking at somebody and we have compassion, we have wise compassion. We just see the nature, we see the flow that sees we're all empty, but we're all one. We're all one, but we're all empty. And so when we see we're all one, it brings the love up. When we see we're all empty, it brings the wisdom up. You need to have both, the love with the teachings. If you don't, there's something missing there. So keep bringing in the love, the joy, the light, the peace, and the practice. And know that that's our true nature. When we're letting go, reminding ourselves, it's happy. When there's no resistance, it's happy. Contentment is happiness. Contentment doesn't mean good enough. Contentment means content, happy. Like really happy, bliss. It's described as bliss. This is what our true pure awareness is. So our defilements get subtle, and we have to keep looking in at the defilements and see. And sometimes we need to boost up the love, the joy, the peace, the happiness in our practice. And remind ourselves that's our true nature. When we empty out, we're reflecting on the characteristics. The foundation is love. The Brahma Viharas have to be mixed in there with these wisdom teachings, because that's all together part of the package. So don't forget the love. Intention is my reminder to let go. I like these simple but profound intentions the Buddha reminds us of in the Noble Eightfold Path of non-ill will, non-harming. That's letting go of ill will, letting go of harming, letting go of getting lost in greed. Because when I have that as the intention, that's my reminder, okay, that's the purpose. If it's for a minute, if it's for 10 seconds, great. You know, if we were already all enlightened, we wouldn't need to be here. So just be compassionate toward yourself. We're all here because this ain't an easy path. So we all got lots of conditioning happening, and we try and be kind to ourselves and gentle to ourselves and just acknowledge this is the intention, and this is where I'm at right now in this moment. And sometimes I can let go. Sometimes I can have peace. Or sometimes the ego just says, and then you just start again. That's why it's really nice that we go to sleep every day and hopefully wake up in the morning and we can say, new day, start a game. We can do that each moment. We don't have to wait, because why not? We've only got this present moment. Let's just start anew. And so setting up an inspiration for where to go, and you do it with a gentle heart.